Hey to everybody. Thank you for being here today. We have a very special webinar with the past International President Sylvia Perry. She was International President 1996-1999. She is the author of the books Empowering Women Worldwide, The History of Project 5.0, and A Bus to 42 Street, The Life of Esther Jaime, first BPW representative to the United Nations. Sylvia has also been the chair of the CAC Constitution Advisory Committee and of the History Task Force. Her extraordinary work and commitment to BPW has been recognized with the highest awards of the organization and by its members. Thank you, Sylvia, for accepting to be with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you, Anne. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are today. I hope you had a good celebrations for the International Women's Day yesterday, thinking about all our friends and colleagues around the globe, but particularly about those in the Ukraine who need our thoughts, prayers and help. I've been asked to talk to you today about the history and pick up from Yasmin's account of the birth of our organisation and the early years. However, so much has happened in the years that followed up to the present that Anne has accepted my offer to do it in two parts. Today I'm taking you into the 21st century and pausing there, and we present the remainder in another webinar whenever Anne decides. The 22nd International Congress in 1996, with the theme of Partnerships for the Future, was chaired by Dr. Sylvia Ricci. During her presidency, she told members that in her 35 years of militancy in IFBPW, she'd been so glad to meet and share enthusiasm with other militant women. For those who knew her, militancy was one of the last characteristics to attribute to Sylvia, a charming, warm and generous person. She was passionate in trying to create a supportive environment for members to help them overcome the many obstacles they faced in their business and professional careers. The key event of her triennium was without doubt the Fourth World Conference on Women, held in Beijing in 1995. It was one of the largest global conferences ever held, with 17,000 participants, of whom 8,000 people were in the official delegates, including some of our members from the 189 countries belonging to the UN. The culmination of the years of work, consultations and lobbying for the advancement of women leading up to Beijing began with the launch of the Decade of Women and the First World Conference of Women in Mexico in 1975. In advance of the UN conference, an NGO forum was held with the title, Look at the World Through Women's Eyes. From the start, Beijing as a venue hosting this conference was extremely controversial because of China's human rights record. So the forum was sited at Heru, 50 kilometers outside Beijing. China wanted to keep the 30,000 women attending the forum away from Beijing city. This meant that we had a long shuttle bus ride out and back every day. It was well worth it for the opportunity to join the mass of women for a galaxy of activities ranging from exhibitions and workshops to music, dancing and poetry in what became the biggest network group of all time. Moving back to the conference halls the next week for the UN conference, at which the delegations debated a draft outcome document, with some sessions going on to 2 a.m. in the morning, the lobbying and negotiations went on to the 11th hour before it was approved by all 189 nations. The outcome document was the platform for action, with its 12 strategic objectives representing critical areas of concern. BPW International delegates have been urged to work on these outcomes ever since, and the issues have been developed in other key documents, leading to our current work agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals. Although members were able to support the whole platform for action, it was a considerable document to master, so different affiliates chose the section they had each felt able to take forward in depth. Not in the original strategic objectives, but added when the 12 areas were defined, was the girl child, an issue which in the years since has been one on which BPW International affiliates in Europe have concentrated, with BPW Italy very much leading the way. It was in Reykjavik, Iceland in 1997 at the European Regional Meeting that the panel chaired by Janice Bancroft, then the UK President, discussed the issue, resulting in a Girls' Bill of Rights being drafted and agreed. Janice had been a part of a team responsible for a published report, Growing Up Female in the UK. BPW Turin set up study groups and prepared a preliminary report for the BPW International UN Status of Women Standing Committee. This led to BPW International making a statement to the 42nd session of the Commission on the Status of Women meeting on the 13th of March 1998, which sought the attention of the UN government delegates to take note and action the recommendations on the girl child in the platform for action. The advocacy continued. BPW Turin held a major seminar in February 2000, in which Janice contributed her expertise on the topic to the seminar. Also speaking at the meeting, the Italian Minister of Social Affairs spoke about the proposed legislation he was bringing forward on the girl child and the children's rights, very much prompted by BPW Italy. Italians and other countries in the Mediterranean area have kept this firmly on the agenda, and last year we witnessed Maria Camilleri, President of BPW Malta, signing an agreement with the former President of to collaborate on work on this issue in their country. There's a whole other talk that could be given on the impressions, details, and achievements of Beijing 1995, but it is sufficient at this time to just mention a few more points. Human rights was a key issue and provided the mantra of human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights, one that must remain top of our agenda. Hillary Clinton at that time, First Lady of the USA, delivered a groundbreaking speech on the topic, uncensored by the USA diplomacy, and demonstrated her personal commitment to the issue. Dr. Claire Forcher, then the current BPW International Rep in New York, and Dr. Pat Harrison, then the regional coordinator for Asia Pacific, cooperated on an NGO statement, which was given to all the delegations. It represented points on which we had lobbied, but made it very clear to governments that we expected it to be a conference of commitments backed by action. While at Beijing, the BPW International Executive inaugurated a new triennial award in the name of the Secretary General of the UN conference, a diplomat, Gertrude Mongella. At every BPW International Congress since has been given to a woman who has done the most to help grassroots women. 1995 opened up a lot of possibilities for sharing our information more quickly worldwide. It became the watershed year for internet activity, with all the major companies launching channels to move this technology ahead. It was an exciting time for the development of the sophisticated communication we all enjoy now. Following on in the next year, the preparations started to have our own BPW International website, and after a lot of work, it was eventually launched in October 1997. As an organisation, we have gradually embraced the advance in technology. Looking back at International Women's Days, we used to celebrate by sending messages of encouragement around the world by fax relay. Do you remember our reliance on fax? I do. In my travelling days, it was all by fax, nothing else. As soon as the net became more available, the young BPWs set up the internet net relay chat for that day. And now with the latest edition of Zoom, Teams, etc., it's become our natural way of all communication. At that early stage, we had our own Spark list, sort of forerunner to Facebook, where we could all share messages. Sharon Selkirk, who was in charge, even ran a Spark list users meeting at the Vancouver Congress. Together, we can make a difference, were the words of Maxine Hayes, President BPW International, as together with the 4 presidents of the other major women's international organizations, they launched Project 50 in Copenhagen in 1980. Originally, the idea of former BPW International President Beryl Nasher of Australia, it fell to the next president, Mildred Head, of the UK, to convene the support for this to happen. In 1995, there was a significant ceremony for one of the 50 projects, which was hugely supported by BPW International. That was the nursing school in La Paz in Mexico, when the graduation of the first intake of students was held in the years since. It has been a significant impact on the local region, which was set up in a barren area among the 100 poor villages around. Today had just trained an enormous number of nurses and bears the name of Professor Sylvia Salazar, BPW Mexico, who was the first coordinator. We had a special reason to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations. An icon of our organization, Esther Bonner-Heimer, was a representative at the conference in San Francisco in 1945, when the Charter for the United Nations was signed. With her experience of working on equality and peace, she helped IFBPW make its application for the consultative status for ECOSOC, which was granted in 1947. Esther became our representative at the UN, a role she continued well past her 100th birthday. Maintaining our A1 category status with ECOSOC requires us to complete a 4-yearly ECOSOC review, for which IFBPW needs to demonstrate that the board and all affiliates are engaged in the work that qualifies us for that level of consultative status. Moving on to 1996, a new initiative was launched, namely the International Fellowship, which had the objective to encourage prominent women and heads of corporations to forge a link with BPW International, but also to pledge financial support. We started with 4 female fellows, but in latter years introduced this support group to men. Approaching the 1996 Congress in Venice, the International Federation now had 100,000 members in 100 countries. This was a very special occasion for me personally, as I was elected as the next president. However, before handing over, Olivia had one more accomplishment in her very active presidency: the production of 2 volumes of the account of our history from 1930 to that current date, 1995. The first volume, up to 1968, incorporated the work of UK member Phyllis Deacon, who was the first woman war correspondent for the Times newspaper, which was previously published as In Pride and With Promise. The research and drafting of the second volume was made by Margaret and John Taylor, whose mother was Isabel Claridge Taylor, a former international treasurer. Everyone should read these volumes to see what a great foundation we have for our organisation today. In the next triennium, Olivia went on to be a brilliant leader of the Friends and Fellows group. Our outcome press statement from the Venice Congress stated that Business and Professional Women International has a commitment to take a stand on worldwide social and community problems. It spoke of our strong condemnation on the increase in sexual violence and aggression used in films and on television. Despite our actions in recent years, violence against women is still one of our top issues. How given, I think, is worsening and still needs to be actively addressed. In November 1996, there was deep concern and statements made about the treatment of women and girls in Afghanistan by the Taliban militia, women losing their work and the closure of schools. How very sad to see that happening again, late 2021. I started my presidency with a 5-point plan for our new team to develop networking and membership, construct a long-term strategic plan, to use the potential in our grassroots to grow in strength and maintain the momentum on improved communications. Within a month, we had set up all our committees, also reshaping the fundraising task force and developing an observers project to find ways for them to get the maximum benefit out of congresses. With 3 former active regional coordinators now in the top leadership positions, Pat Harrison, Amalia Borges-Smith and myself, we naturally tried to encourage more regional connection with the executive. And that was by approving the publication of regional newsletters, legislation chair planning a series of workshops and seminars during the triennium at regional conferences, committee chairs and regional coordinators cascading information, and even a draft paper reviewing the regional structure of IFBPW written by Pat Harrison. In the interim, for us to have a pilot scheme for regional subgroupings to be tried. By November, the 5 regional corridors had set out their plans in the international newsletter, and the cooperation between the executive and the regions was strengthened. And in Vancouver, we were able to get the consultation changed for them to be elected to the executive. The concept of the 5 regions was introduced in Rosemary McEl's term, 1983-85, and also the Friends of IFBW began, suggested to her by a fellow Swiss member. It was also in Rosemary's term that a Young Career Woman programme was introduced. With the help of her colleague, Dr. Monique Siegel, she organised an innovative programme for our very youngest members. As Yasmin Darwich mentioned, we had the pleasure of being a young member taking part in the first Young Career Woman programme, which took place at the 1985 New Zealand Congress. This programme has continued as part of every Congress thereafter, with the first official meeting in Acapulco, arranged by June Sawada of Japan at the invitation of the Mexican members. I was amazed to find so many BPW members there with their daughters as young BPWs. Getting your daughter interested in BPW is a great membership. And what a fantastic route with which to enjoy dancing on a boat for a farewell party. Irene Natividad became a friend of BPW International when I supported her for the Global Summit of Women in Miami in 1997, and also was co-chair for the organisation of the next summit in London. Ever since, Irene has looked to similar involvement and the inclusion of BPW in whatever country she takes the Global Summit. It provides a great programme for our members and gain good contacts. The 23rd International Congress was held in Vancouver in September 1999, also introduced some new features. The opening ceremony featured the inaugural Lena Medicine Phillips Memorial Lecture, which was delivered by Maud Barlow, the National Volunteer Chairperson of the Council of Canadians. Dr. Not Biravan introduced the new competition she had conceived, named Beyond 2000, to challenge federations and clubs with how they were helping other women. Her challenge was to reach a target of helping 2,000 women globally, which in simple terms just came to 220 per country. But as she said, your story alone could inspire many more people around the world to help people help themselves, women help themselves. Knockers continued to bring the competition to all successive conferences. The Congress was also the opportunity to launch a book written by Olivia Ritchie and myself about Esther Heimer, and her remarkable life played a vital role in the BPW International partnership with the United Nations. The proceeds went to a fund for the Esther Heimer BPW UN Training Award. When I joined in 1971, BPW had its own headquarters in London, first in Bloomsbury and then in Battersea, just across the river from the House of Parliament. Tamara Martinez was the director until June 1999. Her enthusiasm and dedication were a bedrock of support for President Yvette Swan and others concerned in recovering from the situation in which we left after the BPWSA abrogation in November 1992. The office closed in late 2001, but I will come back to that later. Implementation of the results of the Vancouver board meeting meant that Dr. Pat Harrison started her term with a changed executive. Now it had 12 members, with the 5 regional coordinators elected and serving as full members, providing better global representation and increased communication between the executive and the members. A young BPW representative also was given a place on the board. From this time onwards, the immediate past president would only serve for the first 12 months after her term. Also, as approved at the board meeting, we now have the right to formally use the name BPW International, as well as IFBPW. Janice Boincroft has stepped in as acting director for the months leading up to the Congress, and on the request she stayed until the end of May 2000, giving the executive time to assess the duties and deliver a role for the new permanent executive. That didn't happen, as I'll tell you later. President Pat relaunched the Esther Heimer UN Training Award in time for the recipient Alexander Gatto of Italy, to attend the 2000 Beijing special meeting of the General Assembly. As well as the large attendances at the Commission on the Status of Women that year, there were regional conferences, all in preparation for the special General Assembly meeting. That was to assess the results of the platform for action and identify issues that had risen since 1995. While Alexandra was in New York, she managed to obtain an internship with ECOSOC for 3 months that summer to continue to widen her experience of UN, a good move that was. Following the special meeting, NGOs responded to the outcome document by saying that despite positive aspects it contained, they wanted to register their disappointment there was not enough political will on the part of some governments. They vowed to work to hold governments accountable, to respect, promote, protect and fulfill the human rights of women and girls, many of which were elaborated in the platform for action. Pat, as a doctor of medicine, was the right person to join the World Osteoporosis Foundation Conference and participate in a workshop making a BP presentation, as we had signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the Foundation in April 1999. Her report back and plea to participate nationally led to many affiliates developing partnerships in their own countries. Pat had a great concern about the difficulty some small affiliates had in being able to pay their membership dues to BPW International, and quoted a number of examples where more affluent federations helped them out. He suggested that twinning with a suitable partner would allow them to work for the good of each other. Communication was increased overall when the executive decided to replace the snail mail to members by dispatching a newsletter by email to every affiliate for whom an email address was held. Working in conjunction with the mentoring chair, Susan Jones of Australia, Pat then set out some guidelines for an exchange program, primary for young BPW members, for an exchange length of, say, 12 months, depending on the visa arrangements. Though it was a sad day for Pat, as it was for many of us as president, she felt privileged to be able to write the tribute to Esther Reimer, who died on the 5th of April 2001. She remembered Esther's kindness and wisdom for new CSW delegates and came to know Esther very well and to appreciate her great dedication to women and their employment. Then it was also time to say goodbye to Battersea. The executive felt that after major changes in the administration due to staff resignations and dismissals, and did some lateral thinking and decided to split the functions of the head office. The setup was for the president to have an office and a full-time employee in her own country, enabling her to personally oversee the day-to-day running of the organisation. The database was outsourced to a professional company, and the executive secretary undertook the management of the membership service. The office was sold, and the proceeds, which were invested to acquire some income, can be recognised in the accounts as the protected Battersea Fund. It was very convenient that the Congress Pat would chair was also in Melbourne, which was easily accessible for the planning process. There was a concern that the numbers for the 2002 conference would be affected by the 9/11 attacks in New York, but we put away any fears that existed at that time concerning flying globally and went to Melbourne to enjoy an appropriately named Congress, World. How the events and discussions at Congress and the resolutions for our developing advocacy and policies were approved will be my starter for the next session on the history of this great organisation, which we all privileged to belong. Looking ahead, there is our work with the UN, which covers all their agencies, and it's just not a concentration on the Commission on the Status of Women. Also how Switzerland, Mexico, Korea, Finland and Egypt hosted our coming together in friendship and a determination to continue our work for equality. Not forgetting how we managed the COVID pandemic and our last General Assembly, which had to be on Zoom. So thank you this morning for listening.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. I came to this thinking that I had a reasonable grasp of BPW history, and I think I just learned 100 new things. So thank you very much. Looking forward to the follow-up. Before we open it up for general discussion, Yasmin, I'd like to turn it over to you for any comment.
What can I say? I'm always proud of the history of BPW International. And I really thank Sylvia for this great presentation. And I know that we need like 5 more webinars to listen your words about BPW International. Thank you very much, Sylvia. And I think that the members have a lot of questions. and I will let them, Anne.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. Okay, so if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please go to the reactions icon, typically at the bottom of your screen. And there you will find a raise hand function. You'll also find a clapping hand function, but that disappears. So don't use that. There's one that says what in whatever language you're looking at, it will say the equivalent of raise hand. So that's what we're looking for. It will also put you in a queue. So I know in what order your hands have been raised. It's very convenient. And we will start with Francesca.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sylvia, for such a great presentation. Like Anne, I felt the same way. I read your book, The Bus to 42nd Street, which is such a wealth of history about how one woman could make such a difference and our relationship to the United Nations. Is there any way to get additional copies of that? I received that as a gift from Liz Benham, and I would really like to hand that out as gifts to new members to really show them, the rich history of our relationship with the UN and with the Women's Congress, etc.
Well, I don't know if there are any about, because we sold. I sent on to headquarters, I think, the rest that I had here. So I don't know if there are any about. But the of course the text of that is still in my and sort of Livia's ownership, as it were. Whether it could be republished, I don't know. It's quite expensive to do that nowadays, but I believe it's online it used to be on the website. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
So we could check that out. I haven't done that, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks, Francesca. We have Margita next. Margita?
Hello, Sylvia. It's a long time no seeing.
Yes.
Just as great as you have ever been. It has been so very nice to go back to the history and remember all the good time we had together, especially when we introduced the Baltic states, St. Petersburg, to the friendship of the BPW. So you are great, and your history is great. Thank you.
And thank you for the many happy times we spent together. Yeah.
Thank you, Margita. Jo, you're next.
Hello, we are really proud to have Sylvia with us within the UK, and we can always dive in on her knowledge, and that's an invaluable gift to BPW UK. But my question to Sylvia this morning is, what got you involved initially? What was that initial contact point that brought you to BPW, so that we can use that within our membership tools now, because those sort of things don't go out of date?
Well, I moved to a new house in Wiltshire, and we were the first in the cul-de-sac, but actually it filled up with people, and somebody who lived a few doors away must have glimpsed me moving around and going out of the street and whatever. One day came and knocked on my door and said, I'm starting up this new group because there's not one here of something that I did in Eastbourne, where I used to live. Would you come along? I feel it's would be right for you. So I said, sorry, I don't know if I could cope with that because I play tennis on a Monday. So she said, well, could you give it up 1 week and do this? So I said, yes, okay. And I went and I met one of the vice presidents of the UK Federation at this opening meeting. And like they say, the rest is history. I was hooked, and there we went. So I think the personal approach is quite good, always. And spotting the people who you think might be interested. Did I know what I'd signed up for then?
Great. Thanks, Jo. Thanks, Sylvia. Raisa. You'll have to unmute. Good.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear all. Thank you very much, President Sylvia, for your wonderful presentation. My name is Nadia. I am a translator by profession, and I am the president of BPW Cotonou, Benin in West Africa. This is a great history we have heard about BPW. But I encountered something, a problem in my club. How possible is it for clubs, especially to new members, to know about the history of BPW in order that they are committed to the organization? Because my problem is, before we were in lethargy, but today we are trying to bring in new young members. But the problem I encounter is what to tell them, how to hold them in BPW so that they see that this is a great organization. Is it possible to have a program, or I don't know how you manage in the clubs in Western countries? So what I need to know is how can we make the young one we are asking to become members of BPW to be committed to our organization? Do you get my question, please?
Well, it's really, I think what I tried to demonstrate to you today, that against all odds, we didn't have all this technology and all these different benefits to work with. But one of the things that's always run through as a thread through our organization is our determination to fight for women's equality and the advocacy. Okay. And that's the one thing that really helps me. So I think perhaps if you could demonstrate to people in your locality, in your towns and whatever else, what you're doing to help women, to show that you're there for them, and could they come along and help you? That might be a way to.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Raisa. Sylvia, to add to that, and Judith, I'm coming to you next. I know we have a bit about the history on our website, international website, but do we have a timeline of highlights? Because that's often much more accessible to people, bullet points essentially. So do we have something along those lines, Sylvia? And if not, can we?
I don't know if that's on the website now, but it's certainly, if you go through the history, you can pick them up. I don't think there's anything in the back to say that. What we did in the bus to 42nd Street, we did put in an order of achievements with the UN, and we published a lot of the statements. And I have here one, when it was the 5th World Conference on Women, I have a book of statements that were published in that era. So it's a matter of somebody cataloguing them and doing that. Yes, I'm not offering at the moment though.
Okay, but that might be something for the future for someone who wants to take that on. I think also just an actual classic timeline, because we have 4 official languages. Most of this is still only available in English to my knowledge, but even then we have, 100 languages probably that we need our members to be able to access. So a timeline is very easy to translate as opposed to prose and larger documents. So it's just food for thought for the history committee this term, maybe. Okay, thanks. Judith.
Thank you, Anne. I'm sorry I missed part of what you said in the last bit, Sylvia, because unfortunately my internet, having just got new fibre optics, decided to freeze for a few minutes, but I've got the gist of it. Sylvia and I go back quite a long way together. I have a few memories of what she said about how she got into the organisation, mine was slightly different, but I was one of the young members when there weren't that many young members about. If I might say, when I got to the age that Young BPW was formed, I was already too old to be a Young BPW member. So I've been around for a long time, and quite a lot of what Sylvia has said, I have seen happen. I agree with Anne. I think a timeline might be quite useful. Can I do it? I'll have to think about that. But my other comment is actually a comment rather than a question. Sylvia, you said that you still had the documents for the 42nd Street book, and I've forgotten the title already, my memory. And there are plenty others as well. What I think is a possibility, and this might bring in the younger people more quickly than we realise, they're all electronic these days. Would it be a possibility to look at e-publishing, or even just producing it to be available as a PDF, which is quite simple, but is actually very transmittable, and would also add to lady from, I've forgotten, Benin, was it?
Benin.
Benin, yes. Would be a way that you could give people the information, which might also include something like a timeline. I'm sure that within our memories, and before we forget, we should be writing all this down. But so it's not a question as such, it's more a comment. But thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I was late. I had to grab a bit of lunch first because it's afternoon here also. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith.
Yeah, the title of the book was Esther 42nd Street, and if I just tell you that, Esther used to travel every day from her home in New Jersey on the bus from New Jersey to New York, and the bus depot in New York is in 42nd Street, just off the First Avenue, where leads off of First Avenue where the United Nations is. So it seemed very appropriate.
Thank you, Sylvia. Bessie.
Good morning. Thank you,
Bessie.
Sylvia, for your presentation. It's always a pleasure to listen to you and the way that you share your wisdom. I just want to tell you that in California, we have a brochure that we give to all the prospective members. And in the back, we have since 1919, a brief history of BPW, and then we list there all the highlights. It might be a good idea if you put together a brochure or something like that that you can give. We have the mission, the vision, and all the benefits with the application so that they can join BPW. But this little brief history is very important, and I think that we should all try to keep it in mind so that we can tell all the good things we have done and attract all the members that will benefit with membership in BPW. Thank you again, Sylvia.
Thank you, Bessie.
And
Nice to see you.
sorry, Sylvia, stepping on your lines. Bessie, we have a couple of messages in the chat asking if you can share that. So you might want to just take a note of that. Marie-Claude, you're next in my lineup.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, and the organizer, and also, of course, Sylvia. It's very interesting to listen again to the history of BPW International. I would also be pleased to contribute to the history of UNESCO, and would be happy also to have the history before me. I know, I could come to, I could be a representative to BPW, to UNESCO, thanks to Hélène Plano. I don't know if you know or remember her. Now she's unfortunately not with us anymore, but it was thanks to her. I remember I also met Gabriela Canonica, I think at UNESCO at some point. But I think it would be interesting to share also the history of UN agencies, because we work all together and we are aligned with the United Nations system. So it would be very, very good. And I think because communication and sharing is really key to our great organization. And thank you very much again, Sylvia. And regarding Nadia, I'm in contact with her because she's a member of my of my UN Standing Committee group on education and advocacy. And advocacy also is one of the main things you can tell to the young, because we are there to also put our advocacy up to the high level. And this is the case. So you have to be aware of this. Thank you very much again. And thank you very much again to Sylvia. You know anything about UNESCO history and BPW, Sylvia?
Well, no, I've got several books about UN here, whatever. And I remember going to UNESCO conferences in Paris, quite some important ones at times. We've supported all the agencies, and we've got the representatives going there. I'm distraction. I've just got a heron landed in my garden looking for the fish in my pool. Sorry about that. Just distracted me for the moment. Yes, I think there's years of work ahead there in all these things you're saying about recording all these things. But yes, we should do that, but we should be making our own history as well. We need to do action, as much action as we can.
Yeah, I do agree. And I will start writing the history of BPW when I became elected for the first time, you know, on the NGO UNESCO Liaison Committee. And then I was elected also as the chair of all the NGOs. So this is very important too for BPW. And I would like it to continue.
Yeah, you did a very lot of good work in UNESCO. And I'm glad you're continuing another standing committee, because I'm sure you'll give it the same dedication.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie-Claude. Yasmin, you would like to join in again?
Just to let the members know that thanks to you, we have the autobiography of Lena Madison Phillips. The book is online for, I think, $90, something like this.
90.
$9.99.
Yes,
US dollars.
$9. Yes.
$9. Sorry.
90 would be huge.
$10. No. $9. Sorry. And it was my concern when I became international president, and talking with Anne, I said, how can we have this as ebook? So she contacted the editor of the book, and he agreed to make it in online book. So thanks to her, we have this. You can find it in Google Books or Kindle, or just search, and you can have it, because it's very important for us to know the life of Lena Madison Phillips, our founder.
Perhaps
Yasmin.
you could put me in contact. Perhaps you could put me in contact with this person who did this book, because perhaps we could do that with Bus to 42nd Street.
The reason he was able to do it was because he was the publisher of the original. So because he was the publisher of the paperback that was sold for probably 20 years before that, he still had the e-files, and he was willing to convert it into an ebook. So I'm not sure it was the same publisher, but we could talk about that.
All right. Okay.
Excuse me, you could self-publish that book on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really cost you any money, Sylvia. If you want to talk, that's how I published my book. So if you want to discuss it, I'm willing to talk to you about that, offline.
Great. See Francesca. Okay, next we have Jaya, and then we have Diana, and then we are probably out of time.
Oh,
so okay. Just a word to other people who might be lining up. So Jaya, please. You're muted.
I'm from Western Australia, Perth, and one of the things about young members coming on board, whilst internationally there's a lot of books up there and things like that, it's also nice to have at ground zero people write little ebooks and say how they started. And just join the dots in terms of achieving the big picture, you know, getting global from your hometown small club right up to being an international member. And when people see the trail or the steps that has gone through and the amount of learning and things people have acquired, that will inspire more young people coming on board, because all of a sudden you put something international and you say, wow, this is inspiring. They are stumbling as to how to get there. What does it take to get there? And I think that's where, if we can join the dots and have little ebooks from everybody who has, like, who's ever attending any of these sessions, just write their experience, how they entered, how they went about doing things, what is it that gave them that inspiration to continue their work. And people can relate at ground zero. Say, for instance, when I started, it was Carol Hanlon who inspired me to join BPW in Australia, and giving me the opportunity to bounce and step up and do other projects. And I think this is where young members will join in and remain and will contribute. It's not just joining, it's for them to pass that legacy on. Mm-hmm. That's just my 2 cents with it.
Being a part.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can always remember. Sorry, I was going to comment there to say I can always remember recruiting somebody, and I said, would you do a vote of thanks to the speaker at the meeting? She said, oh, I could never do that. It's amazing what she did in the future once she got BPW, got her in training.
Yep, that's exactly what I was trying to see. Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I have 3 people still lined up to speak, and that really is our outer limit. So if you're not in line already, I'm sorry. Diana, our regional coordinator, Diana.
Thank you, Anne. I'm sorry for my image. I cannot have it in my phone, but my voice will do the job. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation of our history. I would repeat it, like what others said, that I have learned so much from you. And I went on learning from you with working together. You're a great woman. I'd like to tell the lady from Benin that we didn't mention the fact that we have so many webinars that could be useful for members to visit and to learn. The webinars that Anne and Yasmin have put in the in YouTube. So this is something useful for the members to see. You need to promote these webinars among your members. And also that we need to carry on with our history. I think we are stagnating a little bit. So I really encourage all of us here to carry our history forward. It's very important because we have a very rich past, but we are not, I don't think we're constructing our future as we should, with all the possibilities we have now. Thank you again, Sylvia.
Lovely to see you, Diana. If not see you, but to hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. And yes, we have, this will be number 52 when this webinar becomes available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So there are more than 50 videos there that you can refer members to. Christine, and then Monique. Christine.
Yes, good day, everyone. I just wanted to join with my sisters to say what a wonderful presentation this was. Very inspiration, learned quite a lot. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I think Lenima is on the call, right? And today is her birthday, so I just wanted to wish her birthday greetings from everyone. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Okay, last but certainly not least, we have Monique, and then we'll have to wrap it up. We are busy women. We have places to go. Monique, please.
You're muted, Monique.
Yes, it's 5 a.m. here. I am in California. But first, I want to thank Sylvia so much, because she has always been, for so many years, I've known her, and a true pillar of BPW. And I wanted to mention two things, because I always get very, I think it's always fascinating how we have met for the first time with BPW. And you have mentioned Maxine Hayes. And Maxine Hayes was indeed fantastic. She became international president, but the year before she became president, she came to Hong Kong. And at that time, she managed to have an advertising on the radio that she was this lady from America, and she was informing the girls, you are in school, you are ending your secondary school, perhaps ready to enter university or already being in university. And this is a group for you. This is something where you will be guided to make a choice in your career. And if you can, if you are available, please come at such a place at such an hour. And several of us went there. We were about 25. And seven of us were extremely taken and so enthusiastic. And we started to have the foundation of BPW Hong Kong. I think 4 years later, I was the president of Hong Kong for 2 years. And we were only one club, but we were 104 of 14 nationalities. I thought it was extraordinary. And another thing which I think is a great boosting is when international presidents visit the various countries and the various clubs. And I do remember your visit, Sylvia. You came with Pat Harrison in Hong Kong. And it's an opportunity for also gathering new young person or new women, to the club. And I think it's sort of bring many people together, and it's really good, really good. See, I am now in USA, but still very faithful to Hong Kong, and of course to UK. See you.
Thank you. Part of our membership team. I remember a visit to Hong Kong and everywhere, and it was such well, that's another whole story in itself. The wonderful experiences that you gain entrance because, and respect comes with the organization when an international president
absolutely
can have tea provided for her, afternoon tea provided at the Speaker's House of the Australian Parliament in Canada, in Canberra, and also going to see the Speaker of the Japanese Parliament as well. So those sort of things, and you're treated with such respect. And that respect is for the organisation as well.
Totally.
Thank you, Monique. And actually in 2015, I was the founding president of the current Hong Kong Club. So we meet, yes. So I want to wrap up now. I have put the link for our YouTube channel. Again, there are 52 videos there, so you can certainly find out much more there. So I also put the link for our Facebook page, which is where this video, when it's posted in the next 24 hours, will be announced. And so you can go to either of those links, but please take note of them. Sylvia, we want to thank you very much for today's presentation, and we are eagerly awaiting the next installment, and we'll discuss when that can be. But I'm sure everyone in the room and everybody they know will be there. And we appreciate that greatly. Thank you, as always, to Dr. Yasmin, my co-host in this webinar series. We appreciate very much. And thank you, as always, as ever, to each and every one of you for joining us. We love you. We wish you well. We hope to see you in person soon. For those in New Zealand, please go to bed. And for those just getting up very early in California, we thank you all for your lack of sleep. One last thanks once more to Sylvia and to everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.